A man crawled out of the desert with a secret that could kill everyone. The wagon train thought they were saving a dying stranger. They had no idea they'd just pulled a loaded gun into their camp. His name was Mercer, and the valley they were heading toward wasn't empty land waiting for settlers. It was a battlefield, and they were walking straight into a war they couldn't win. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale travels. The desert doesn't forgive mistakes, and the man lying half dead beside his horse had made several. His lips were cracked white, his face burned raw by 3 days under a sun that showed no mercy. Blood had dried black across his shirt where something, bullet, knife, or worse, had torn him open and left him to rot. The horse beside him was already gone, eyes glazed, tongue swollen. Buzzards circled overhead, patient and certain. That's how the Kellerman wagon train found him. It was Martha Haynes who spotted him first. She'd been walking alongside her family's wagon, trying to stretch the ache out of her legs, when she saw the dark shape crumpled near a stand of twisted mesquite. At first she thought it was just another carcass. The trail west was littered with them. But then the shape moved. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the creak of wheels and the low murmur of tired conversation. "Someone's out there!" The wagons lurched to a halt. Dust rolled forward in lazy clouds. Men jumped down, rifles already in hand, because out here you didn't take chances. Women pulled children close. The sun hammered down on all of them, like the desert itself was watching to see what they'd do. Samuel Haynes, Martha's father, reached the man first. He knelt down, turned him over gently, and swore under his breath. "He's alive," Samuel called back. "Barely." 2 other men came forward, Jacob Renner, broad-shouldered and steady, and Tom Farrow, younger and quicker to panic. Together they lifted the stranger and carried him toward the nearest wagon. His head lolled back, exposing a throat so dry it looked like old leather. His eyes flickered open once, pale gray and sharp even through the haze of near death, then closed again. "Is he going to make it?" Tom asked, voice tight. "Don't know," Samuel said, "but we're not leaving him to die." They laid him out in the shade of the Haynes wagon. Martha brought water, dribbling it carefully between his cracked lips. He choked, coughed, then swallowed. His breathing steadied. Slowly, painfully, he came back from wherever he'd been. By the time the sun dropped low enough to paint the sky red, the stranger was awake. He didn't say much at first, just his name. Mercer. His voice was rough, scraped raw by thirst and suffering, but there was something underneath it, something cold and controlled. He took the water Martha offered, drank slowly, then looked around the camp with eyes that missed nothing. He counted the wagons, noted the faces, watched the way people moved, the way they carried themselves. Samuel sat down across from him, arms resting on his knees. "You're lucky we found you," Samuel said. "Luck had nothing to do with it," Cole replied. "You're headed west. I was headed east. We crossed paths. That's all." "What happened to you?" Cole's jaw tightened. "Wrong place, wrong time, wrong people. Wrong—" "Someone do that to you?" Samuel nodded toward the blood-stained shirt. "Yeah." "They still following you?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "No, not anymore." Samuel didn't push. Out here, a man's past was his own business. What mattered was what he did next. "We're about 2 days from the valley," Samuel said. "Our guide says there's good land there. Water, timber, room enough for all of us to start fresh." Cole's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "What valley?" "Sweetwater Valley," Samuel said. "You know it?" Cole didn't answer right away. He looked past Samuel toward the western horizon where the last light was fading into darkness. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat and certain. "Yeah, I know it." "You've been there?" "Long time ago." Samuel waited, but Cole didn't offer anything more. Instead, he pushed himself upright, wincing as the movement pulled at his wound. Martha moved to help him, but he waved her off. "You should rest," she said. "I've rested enough." He stood slowly, testing his legs. They held. He was thinner than he should have been, hollow-eyed and worn down, but there was strength in him still, the kind that didn't come from muscle alone. "Thank you for the water," Cole said, looking at Martha. "And for not leaving me out there." We're not that kind of people, Martha said quietly. Cole studied her for a moment, then nodded. Good. You're going to need that. Before anyone could ask what he meant, a voice cut through the camp. Well, well, looks like our lost lamb is back on his feet. The man who approached was tall and lean, with a wide smile and clothes just a little too fine for a wagon train guide. His name was Silas Harper, and he moved through the camp like he owned it. He clapped Samuel on the shoulder, then turned his attention to Cole. Silas Harper, he said, extending a hand. I'm the man leading these good folks to their new home. Cole looked at the hand but didn't take it. Cole Mercer. Silas's smile didn't waver, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Pleasure. Always good to have another strong back. We could use you when we reach the valley. I'm not staying, Cole said. Oh? Silas raised an eyebrow. Where you headed? East. Well, that's a shame, but I suppose a man's got to do what a man's got to do. Silas's smile widened. Still, you might want to reconsider. Sweetwater Valley's got everything a man could want. Good soil, clean water, and plenty of space for folks willing to work for it. Cole's expression didn't change. Whose land is it? The question landed like a stone in still water. Silas's smile thinned. It's open range, public land. First come, first served. That's not what I asked. The two men stared at each other. The camp had gone quiet. People were watching now, sensing something sharp in the air. There's a rancher nearby, Silas admitted, his tone still smooth. Name's Voss, Gideon Voss. He runs cattle through the valley from time to time, but he doesn't own it. The land belongs to whoever's strong enough to claim it. Cole's jaw tightened. He turned away without another word and walked toward the edge of camp, where the firelight didn't reach. Samuel followed him. You know this Voss? Samuel asked quietly. Cole didn't look at him. Yeah. Is he going to be a problem? Yes. Samuel waited, but Cole didn't elaborate. Finally, Samuel said, We've come too far to turn back now. Most of these families have nothing left behind them. This is their only chance. Then they picked the wrong valley, Cole said. Why? Cole turned to face him, and for the first time, Samuel saw something raw in his eyes. Something that looked like old pain and older guilt. Because Gideon Voss doesn't share, Cole said, and he doesn't forgive. But the camp settled into uneasy sleep that night. Fires burned low. Guards were posted. The desert stretched out around them, vast and indifferent. Cole didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of the camp, staring west toward the valley he'd sworn never to see again. Memories moved through his mind like ghosts, memories of a younger version of himself, of a war that had burned the world down, of a boy who'd followed him into battle and never come home. Gideon's son. Cole had tried to save him, tried and failed, and Gideon had never forgiven him for it. Now these settlers, good people, desperate people, were walking straight into Gideon's land, and there was no way that ended without blood. Behind him, footsteps crunched softly in the dirt. Martha. She sat down beside him, wrapping her shawl tighter against the night chill. You should be sleeping, Cole said. So should you. They sat in silence for a while. Then Martha said, My father thinks you're hiding something. Your father's smart. Are you? Cole glanced at her. Hiding something? Yeah. Is it going to get us killed? He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quiet and honest. I don't know yet. Martha absorbed that. She didn't look afraid, just tired. Tired of running, tired of hoping, tired of being afraid. We can't go back, she said. There's nothing behind us. We burned everything to come here. I know. Then what do we do? Cole looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same thing he'd seen in 100 other faces during the war, the look of someone who'd already lost too much and couldn't afford to lose more. You stay smart, he said. You listen, and when the time comes, you run. And what will you do? Cole turned back toward the darkness. Whatever I have to. Us. They reached the edge of Sweetwater Valley 2 days later. It was everything Silas had promised, and worse. The valley opened up before them like something out of a dream. Green grass rolled down from the foothills, thick and lush from the spring rains. A clear river cut through the center, lined with cottonwoods and willows. Beyond that, timber ran up into the hills, dark and dense. The sky was wide and blue, and for a moment, just a moment, it looked like paradise. The settlers saw it and wept. Children ran forward laughing. Women clutched their husbands' arms. Men stood tall for the first time in months, seeing the future spread out before them. Silas Harper rode to the front of the train, arms spread wide. "There it is, folks, just like I promised. Sweetwater Valley, your new home." A cheer went up. Hats flew into the air. People hugged each other, crying and laughing at the same time. Only Cole didn't move. He sat on his horse at the rear of the train, eyes scanning the valley floor. He saw the grass. He saw the water. But he also saw the fence lines in the distance, faint but unmistakable. He saw the cattle, hundreds of them, grazing near the river. And he saw the smoke rising from a ranch house nestled against the far hills. Gideon's ranch. "They don't see it," a voice said beside him. Cole turned. Jacob Renner had ridden up, his face grim. "See what?" Cole asked. "That we're not alone." Jacob pointed toward the hills. Cole followed his gaze and saw them. Riders, 3 of them, sitting their horses on a ridge overlooking the valley. Watching. "How long have they been there?" Cole asked. "Since we crested the rise." Cole's hand moved instinctively to the revolver at his hip. The riders didn't move. They just watched, still and silent, like wolves deciding whether the prey was worth the hunt. Then slowly, they turned and rode away. "Should we tell the others?" Jacob asked. "No," Cole said. "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because they're not ready to hear it." Jacob studied him. "But you knew this was coming." "Yeah." "Why didn't you warn us?" Cole looked at him, and for a moment, Jacob saw something hard and unforgiving in the other man's eyes. "Would it have mattered?" Cole asked. Jacob didn't have an answer for that. The settlers made camp that night on the valley floor, and the mood was jubilant. Fires blazed, music played, someone broke out a fiddle, and people danced under the stars. For the first time in months, they allowed themselves to hope. Silas moved through the camp like a king among his people, shaking hands, slapping backs, accepting praise. He found Samuel Haynes near one of the fires and sat down beside him. "Well, Samuel, what do you think?" Silas asked, grinning. Samuel looked out at the valley, his expression thoughtful. "It's beautiful. Everything you said it would be." "And more," Silas said. "This is just the beginning. Give it a year and this place will be thriving. Farms, homes, maybe even a town." Samuel nodded slowly. Then he said, "What about the rancher? Voss?" Silas's smile didn't falter. "What about him?" "Cole says he's not going to be happy about us being here." "Cole?" Silas's tone sharpened slightly. "What does he know about it?" "He says he knows Voss. Says this is his land." Silas waved a hand dismissively. "Voss runs cattle here, sure, but he doesn't own it. The valley's open range. Always has been. If he had a problem with settlers, he should have filed a claim. He didn't, so now it's ours for the taking." "And if he disagrees?" Silas leaned in, his voice dropping. "Then we stand our ground. There's 20 families here, Samuel. Voss has got maybe a dozen hands. He's not stupid enough to start something he can't finish." Samuel wanted to believe that, but the look on Cole's face earlier kept nagging at him. "I hope you're right," Samuel said. "I'm always right," Silas said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Now relax. Enjoy the night. Tomorrow, we start building our future." Cole didn't join the celebration. He stood at the edge of camp, looking toward the distant lights of Gideon's ranch. He could almost feel the weight of eyes on him, watching from across the valley. Martha found him there. "You're not dancing," she said. "Not much of a dancer." She smiled faintly. "Neither am I." They stood together in comfortable silence. Then Martha said, "Everyone's so happy. It's the first time I've seen my father smile in months." Cole didn't respond. "You think it's going to end badly, don't you?" she asked. "Yes." "Why?" Cole turned to look at her. "Because Silas is lying to you. This isn't open land. It's Gideon's Valley. He's run cattle here for 20 years. He's bled for it, fought for it, and now a bunch of strangers show up and tell him it's theirs? That doesn't end with handshakes and smiles." "Then why haven't you warned everyone?" "I tried. No one wants to hear it." Martha's expression hardened. Then make them hear it. It's too late for that. It's not too late, Martha said, her voice fierce. Not if we leave now, tonight, before... She stopped. Cole followed her gaze. A rider was approaching from the west, moving fast. He carried a torch, and in its light, Cole could see the hard set of his jaw, the rifle across his saddle. The camp went quiet. The music stopped. People turned to watch as the rider pulled up at the edge of the firelight. He was young, maybe 25, with a weather-beaten face and cold eyes. He wore a cattleman's hat and a long coat, and when he swung down from his horse, his hand never moved far from his gun. "Who's in charge here?" he demanded. Silas stepped forward, still smiling. "That'd be me, Silas Harper." "And you are?" "Jack Drummond. I work for Mr. Voss." He looked around the camp, taking in the wagons, the families, the fires. "You folks need to pack up and move on." The settlers stirred uneasily. Silas raised his hands, placating. "Now hold on, friend. Hold on. We're just travelers looking for a place to settle. There's plenty of room here for everyone." "This ain't public land," Drummond said flatly. "It's Mr. Voss's valley. You're trespassing." "We're on open range," Silas countered. "No one owns it." "Mr. Voss does. And he's giving you one chance to leave peacefully." "Or what?" Silas asked, his smile gone now. Drummond's hand drifted toward his gun. "Or we make you leave." Samuel stepped forward. "We don't want trouble. But we've come a long way. We've got women and children here. Surely your Mr. Voss can spare a little land for families in need." Drummond's expression didn't soften. "Mr. Voss don't share, and he don't negotiate. You've got until sundown tomorrow to clear out." He turned to mount his horse. "Wait," Cole said. Every head turned. Cole stepped into the firelight, and Drummond froze. For a long moment, the two men stared at each other. Then Drummond's face went pale. "Mercer," he breathed. "Jack, what the hell are you doing here?" "Could ask you the same thing." Drummond's hand moved closer to his gun. "You got a lot of nerve showing your face in this valley." "I didn't have a choice. Mr. Voss is going to want to know you're here." "I'm sure he already does." Drummond's jaw worked. Then he said, "You tell these people to leave, Mercer. You owe him that much." "I don't owe him anything," Cole said quietly. "Not anymore." Drummond's face twisted with anger. "You got his boy killed!" The words hung in the air like smoke. Cole didn't flinch. "I know." "Then you know what's coming." "Yeah, I know." Drummond stared at him a moment longer, then swung back into his saddle. He looked down at the settlers, his voice hard. "Sundown tomorrow. After that, you're on your own." He wheeled his horse and rode off into the darkness. The camp erupted. "What was that about? Who is this Voss? We can't just leave. What does he mean, got his boy killed?" Silas rounded on Cole, his face flushed with anger. "You want to explain what the hell just happened?" Cole met his gaze. "You led these people into a trap. I led them to opportunity. You led them to a war." "There's no war," Silas shouted. "Just a bully rancher trying to scare us off land that doesn't belong to him." "It belongs to him," Cole said. "And now he knows I'm here, which means this just got a whole lot worse." Samuel stepped between them. "Enough, both of you." He turned to Cole. "Tell us the truth. All of it. What happened between you and Voss?" Cole looked around at the faces watching him, frightened, angry, confused. He didn't want to do this, didn't want to drag them into his past, but they were already in it, whether they knew it or not. "During the war," Cole began slowly, "Gideon's son rode with me. His name was Daniel. He was 17, brave, stupid, got himself killed trying to prove he was a man. And Gideon blames you," Samuel said. "He blames everyone, but yeah, mostly me." "Why?" "Because I was supposed to keep him safe, and I didn't." Martha spoke up. "That wasn't your fault." Cole's smile was bitter. "Try telling Gideon that." Silas threw up his hands. "This is insane. We're not leaving because of some old grudge. This land is ours. We claimed it. We're staying." "You stay, you die," Cole said flatly. "Then we fight." "With what? You've got farmers and families. Gideon's got professional ranch hands and hired guns. It won't even be close." Then what do you suggest? Silas demanded. Cole looked at Samuel. You pack up, you leave. Tonight. You go north or south. Anywhere but here. And if we don't? Samuel asked quietly. Cole didn't answer, because they both already knew. The argument raged late into the night. Some wanted to leave immediately. Others refused to abandon the valley. Silas worked the crowd, stoking their pride, their anger, their desperation. He painted Gideon as a tyrant, the valley as their rightful home, leaving as surrender. By dawn, the decision was made. They would stay. Cole watched from a distance as the settlers began to dig in, literally. They started laying out foundations, marking plots, building fences, planting stakes in the ground like flags on a battlefield. Fools, he thought. Brave, desperate fools. Martha found him saddling his horse. You're leaving, she said. It wasn't a question. Yeah. Because you're afraid of Gideon? No. Because staying won't help. It'll just get more people killed. You think we can't win? I know you can't. Martha stepped closer. Then help us. Cole shook his head. I can't. Why not? He looked at her and she saw the pain in his eyes, old and deep and unforgiven. Because every time I try to save someone, he said quietly, they end up dead. He swung into the saddle. Martha grabbed the reins. My father thinks you're a coward. Silas thinks you're a traitor, but I think you're just scared. Smart and scared, Cole said. That's how you survive. And what about us? Cole pulled the reins free. You chose to stay. That's on you. He rode east, away from the valley, away from the fight, away from the ghosts that haunted this place. He made it 5 miles before he stopped. He sat there on his horse, staring at the horizon, feeling the weight of the choice pressing down on him. He could keep riding, leave them behind, save himself. Or he could go back. The smart choice was obvious. But Cole Mercer had stopped making smart choices a long time ago. He turned his horse around and rode back toward the storm. The settlers saw him coming back and took it as a sign of hope. Cole saw it differently. He was riding back into a fight he couldn't win, for people who wouldn't listen, against a man who'd been waiting years to put a bullet in him. But as he crossed back into the valley and saw the families working to build something from nothing, he knew he couldn't live with himself if he just rode away. Samuel met him at the edge of camp, surprise written across his weathered face. Thought you were gone for good, Samuel said. So did I, Cole replied, swinging down from his horse. But I've got a bad habit of making stupid decisions. Glad this was one of them. Samuel extended his hand, and after a moment Cole took it. Don't be glad yet, Cole said. Things are about to get worse. How much worse? Cole looked past him toward the valley where families were already staking claims, children playing near the river, women hanging wash on lines strung between wagons. It looked peaceful. It looked like the beginning of something good. Gideon's not going to wait until sundown, Cole said. He's going to hit you before you're ready. Probably today. And when he does, he's going to come hard. Samuel's jaw tightened. Then we'll be ready. You're not listening. These aren't just ranch hands. Gideon runs with men who've killed before and won't think twice about doing it again. You've got farmers with squirrel rifles going up against professional guns. What would you have us do? Samuel's voice rose, frustration bleeding through. We can't go back. We sold everything. Burned bridges. This valley is all we have left. Cole understood that desperation. He'd felt it himself once, a long time ago, when the war had stripped away everything he'd known and left him with nothing but choices between bad and worse. Then we don't fight them head on, Cole said. We make Gideon think twice before he attacks. How? By showing him you're not worth the blood it'll cost him. Before Samuel could respond, Martha appeared, her expression tight with worry. Riders coming, from the west. Cole's hand went to his gun. How many? 6, maybe 7. That's not an attack, Cole said. That's a message. He strode toward the western edge of camp, Samuel and Martha following close behind. Other settlers gathered, sensing trouble. Women pulled children close. Men grabbed whatever weapons they had, rifles, shotguns, axes, tools turned into makeshift clubs. The riders came in slow, a deliberate show of confidence. They spread out in a line, their horses walking steady through the tall grass. In the center rode a man who could only be Gideon Voss. He was in his 50s, broad-shouldered and iron-hard, with a face carved from stone and eyes that had seen too much death to fear it anymore. He wore a cattleman's coat and a wide-brimmed hat, and his hand rested easy on the rifle across his saddle. The men flanking him were cut from the same cloth, hard, capable, and utterly without mercy. Gideon's eyes swept across the camp, taking in every detail, every face. Then they landed on Cole, and the world seemed to narrow to just the two of them. "Cole Mercer," Gideon said, his voice carrying across the distance like a judge pronouncing sentence. "Didn't believe Jack when he told me. Thought maybe the desert had finally claimed you." "Not yet," Cole said. "Pity." Gideon urged his horse forward a few steps, his men following. "You got a lot of nerve showing your face here." "Wasn't planning to. Things just worked out that way." Gideon's eyes were flat and cold. "You know why I can't let that stand. I know what you think I did, and I know nothing I say will change it." "Damn right." Gideon's voice hardened. "My boy followed you into hell because he thought you were something special. Thought you'd keep him safe, and you got him killed." The words hit Cole like fists, each one landing where old scars hadn't quite healed. He didn't defend himself, didn't argue. What was the point? Gideon's pain was real, and nothing Cole said would take it away. Samuel stepped forward. "Mr. Voss, I'm Samuel Haynes. These are my people. We didn't come here looking for trouble." Gideon's gaze shifted to Samuel, measuring him. "Then you picked the wrong valley, Mr. Haynes. We were told this was open land. We're just families looking for a fresh start." "I don't care what you were told. This valley's mine. Has been for 20 years. I've bled for it, lost good men defending it. And I'm not about to hand it over to a bunch of squatters who showed up with nothing but false claims and empty promises." Silas pushed his way to the front, his face flushed with anger. "We have every right to be here. This is public land, and we're claiming it under the Homestead Act." Gideon looked at Silas like he was something scraped off a boot. "And you must be the lying snake who led them here." "The name's Harper, Silas Harper, and I'm no liar. I'm a guide who knows opportunity when I see it." "You're a con man who sold these people a dream that's going to get them killed," Gideon said flatly. "And when the shooting starts, you'll be the first one running." Silas's hand moved toward the pistol at his hip, but Jacob Renner caught his wrist, holding him back. Gideon didn't even flinch. He'd seen men like Silas before. All talk and bluster until the first bullet flew. "I'm giving you one chance," Gideon said, addressing the whole camp now. "Pack up, leave. Go north or south, I don't care which. But you leave this valley by sundown, or I'll run you out myself." "And if we don't?" Samuel asked quietly. Gideon's expression didn't change. "Then you're trespassing on my land, and I deal with trespassers the way I always have." The threat hung in the air, cold and absolute. Martha stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "There are children here. Women. Families who've lost everything to come this far. You'd really make war on us?" Gideon looked at her, and for just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Something that might have been regret or exhaustion or the weight of too many years spent fighting. "I don't want to, ma'am," he said quietly, "but I will if I have to. This valley cost me my son. It's the only thing I've got left of him, and I won't let it be taken from me." Cole spoke up. "Gideon, these people didn't kill Daniel. I didn't kill Daniel, the war did, and holding on to that hate won't bring him back." Gideon's face went hard as granite. "Don't you dare speak his name. Someone has to, because you're about to spill more blood in his memory, and it won't change a damn thing. It'll settle the debt." "There is no debt," Cole said, his voice rough with old pain. "Daniel made his choice. He knew the risks. We all did." Gideon's hand tightened on his rifle. For a heartbeat, Cole thought he might actually pull it. The other riders tensed, ready to follow their boss's lead. The settlers behind Cole shifted nervously, fingers finding triggers. Then Gideon exhaled slowly and shook his head. "Sundown," he said. "After that, anyone still here is an enemy." He wheeled his horse and rode off, his men following. The settlers watched them go, the silence heavy with dread. Silas broke it first. "That son of a bitch thinks he can scare us off our own land." "It's not our land," Cole said tiredly. "That's the point." "The hell it isn't! We claimed it fair and square. You claimed land that belonged to a man with guns and the will to use them. That's not fair. It's not square. It's suicide. Samuel turned to the gathered settlers. Everyone, back to your families. We need to talk this through. The crowd dispersed slowly, frightened voices rising as people returned to their wagons. Samuel pulled Cole aside, his expression grave. You think he'll really attack? Before sundown, probably within the next few hours. Why? Because waiting gives you time to dig in, time to think, time to get organized. Gideon knows the longer he waits, the harder it'll be to move you, so he'll hit fast while you're still rattled. Samuel ran a hand through his graying hair. Then we need to prepare. For what? You can't win a straight fight. Then what do you suggest? Cole thought for a moment, his mind working through possibilities. Finally, he said, we make him think it'll cost him more than it's worth. Set up defenses, show strength. Make it clear that even if he wins, he'll lose men doing it. Gideon's practical. If he thinks the price is too high, he might back off. Might? It's the best I can offer. Samuel nodded slowly. Then let's get to work. The next hours were a blur of desperate preparation. Cole moved through the camp, positioning wagons into a defensive circle, showing men with no military experience how to create firing positions, where to place shooters for overlapping fields of fire. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. Jacob Renner proved himself a natural leader, organizing teams, keeping people focused. Tom Farrow, despite his nervousness, worked tirelessly hauling supplies and reinforcing weak points. Even Silas pitched in, though Cole noticed he always managed to stay well away from the most exposed positions. Martha worked alongside the other women, preparing bandages and supplies, knowing that no matter how things went, there would be wounded before the day was done. She caught Cole's eye once as he passed, and the look she gave him was equal parts fear and determination. By early afternoon, they'd done what they could. The camp looked more like a fortress now, wagons circled tight, barrels and crates stacked for cover, rifles positioned at key points. It still wouldn't be enough if Gideon came with his full force, but it might give him pause. Cole stood at the northern edge of the circle, scanning the hills. Samuel joined him. Think he's watching? Samuel asked. Count on it. What's he waiting for? The right moment, when the sun's in our eyes, when we're tired from working all day, when our guard drops. Cole paused. Or maybe he's hoping we'll just pack up and leave. We're not leaving. Cole looked at him. You're a stubborn man, Samuel Haynes. Desperate man. There's a difference. A shout went up from the Eastern Watch. Cole spun, hand on his gun, but it wasn't an attack. A single rider was approaching, moving slow with his hands raised high. As he got closer, Cole recognized him. Jack Drummond. The young ranch hand rode right up to the wagon line, his face pale and tight. He looked at Cole. Mr. Voss wants to talk. Just you. That's not happening, Samuel said. Wasn't asking you, Drummond said, still looking at Cole. He says to tell you he's willing to discuss terms, but only with you, alone. It's a trap, Silas called out from somewhere behind them. Drummond's jaw tightened. Mr. Voss gave his word. No tricks. Just talk. Cole studied the younger man. Jack had always been honest, even when the truth was hard. If Gideon had sent him, it meant the offer was real. Where? Cole asked. The old line shack, north end of the valley, 1 hour. Cole nodded. I'll be there. Cole, no, Martha said, pushing forward. You can't trust him. I don't, but I need to hear what he has to say. Why? Because maybe, just maybe, we can end this without anyone dying. Drummond wheeled his horse and rode off. Samuel grabbed Cole's arm. This is insane. He'll kill you the moment you're alone. Maybe, but if there's a chance to avoid a bloodbath, I have to take it. And if it is a trap, Cole met his eyes, then you'll know Gideon's coming, and you can prepare accordingly. He didn't wait for an argument. He saddled his horse and rode out, ignoring the protests behind him. As he headed north across the valley floor, he felt the weight of eyes on him, from the camp behind, from the hills around, from the past that never quite let him go. The line shack was an old structure on the valley's northern edge, half collapsed and forgotten. Gideon's horse was tied outside. Cole dismounted, checked his gun, and walked in. Gideon stood by the broken window, looking out at the valley. He didn't turn when Cole entered. "You came," Gideon said. "You asked. Didn't think you would. Figured you'd learned enough sense to stay away from me. Never been accused of having too much sense." Gideon finally turned, and Cole saw the exhaustion in his face. This wasn't the hard, unyielding rancher from earlier. This was a man who'd carried grief for too long and didn't know how to put it down. "I meant what I said," Gideon began, "about the valley, about what it cost me. I know. But I've been thinking about what you said too, about Daniel making his own choices." Gideon's voice roughened. "He did, didn't he? I told him not to go, told him the war wasn't his fight. But he wouldn't listen, said he had to prove himself." "He was brave," Cole said quietly. "Too brave for his own good." "He was 17. The words came out broken. "Just a boy playing at being a man. He died trying to save his whole unit. He drew fire away from us so we could retreat. If he hadn't, we'd all be dead." Gideon's eyes filled with something Cole couldn't quite name. Pain, pride, rage, all mixed together. "Did he suffer?" "No, it was quick." That was a lie. Daniel had taken 3 bullets and lived long enough to know he was dying. But Gideon didn't need to carry that image. "I should have been there," Gideon said. "Should have stopped him." "You couldn't have, no more than I could." They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Gideon said, "Those settlers, they really have nowhere else to go?" "No." "And Harper? Is he the snake I think he is?" "Worse, probably. But the families are good people. They're just desperate." Gideon nodded slowly, something working behind his eyes. "There's land to the south, not as good as this valley, but decent enough. Water, timber, room for them to build." Cole felt a spark of hope. "You'd let them settle there?" "Not my land to give or take, but I wouldn't stop them." "And the valley?" Gideon's expression hardened again. "Stays mine." "I can't let that go, Cole. It's all I've got." "I understand." "Do you?" Gideon stepped closer. "Because I'm offering you a way out. Tell them about the southern land, convince them to move. Do that, and we're square. No bloodshed, no war. Clean slate." Cole wanted to believe it could be that simple, but he'd learned long ago that nothing ever was. "What if they won't go?" he asked. Gideon's face went cold. "Then I'll make them." "Gideon, I've given you more than you deserve, Mercer, more than those squatters deserve. Take the offer while it's still on the table." Cole looked at the man who'd once been his friend before the war, before Daniel, before everything went to hell. He saw the pain there, the grief that had turned into something hard and unforgiving. "I'll tell them," Cole said, "but I won't make promises I can't keep." "Fair enough." Gideon extended his hand. "For what it's worth, I'm glad the desert didn't take you." Cole took the hand, felt the strength still in it, the calluses of a man who'd worked hard for everything he had. "For what it's worth," Cole said, "Daniel would have been proud of the man you are." Gideon's grip tightened, then released. "Get out of here, Cole, and don't come back to this valley, not ever." Cole rode back to camp with Gideon's offer burning in his mind. It was better than nothing, better than war. But would the settlers accept it? He found them waiting, anxious and armed, ready for an attack that hadn't come. Samuel met him at the wagon line. "Well?" Cole told them everything. About the offer, about the southern land, about Gideon's ultimatum. Silas exploded before he'd even finished. "Absolutely not! We're not being run off our land by some cattle baron with a grudge." "It's not our land," Cole repeated, his patience wearing thin. "We claimed it. It's ours by right." "Rights don't mean much when you're dead," Cole shot back. Samuel held up a hand. "Everyone calm down. Let's think this through rationally." "There's nothing to think through," Silas insisted. "We stay. We fight if we have to, but we don't run." "Easy for you to say," Jacob said, stepping forward. "You're not the one who'll be bleeding when Gideon's men come through. Neither are you if you grow a spine and stand your ground." Jacob's fist caught Silas square in the jaw, dropping him like a stone. Men rushed forward to separate them, voices rising in anger and fear. "Enough!" Samuel's voice cracked like a whip. "This is exactly what Voss wants, for us to tear ourselves apart."
The camp went quiet. Silas pushed himself up, blood trickling from his split lip, glaring at Jacob. Samuel turned to Cole. This southern land, is it real? Gideon wouldn't lie about it. Not to me. But it's not as good as the valley. No, but it's livable, and you'd be alive to work it. Martha spoke up. How long do we have to decide? Sundown? Same as before? The settlers looked at each other, weighing survival against pride, fear against hope. We should vote, someone called out. Vote? Silas spat blood. This isn't a democracy. This is our future.
Then let the people decide their future, Samuel said firmly. He raised his voice. All those in favor of taking Voss's offer and moving to the southern land, raise your hands. Slowly, reluctantly, hands went up. Cole counted. Maybe a third of the families. All those in favor of staying and defending our claim. More hands rose. Not quite 2/3, but enough. The decision was made. Then it's settled, Samuel said heavily. We stay. Cole felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders. He'd tried, offered them a way out, but they'd chosen to stand and fight, and now he'd have to help them survive what was coming. All right, Cole said. Then we prepare for war. As the sun began its descent toward the western hills, Cole walked the defensive line one more time, checking positions, reinforcing weak spots, trying to find some advantage that might tip the scales. Martha found him near the eastern edge, staring out at the darkening valley. My father says you did everything you could, she said. Didn't do enough. You gave us a choice. That's more than most would have done. Cole turned to look at her. I should have tried harder, should have made them listen. You can't make people see sense when they're desperate. I learned that watching my father lose the farm back home, he kept thinking things would turn around, kept holding on until there was nothing left to hold. She wrapped her arms around herself. Sometimes people need to believe in something, even if it's a lie. This valley's not a lie. It's real. It's beautiful. It's everything Silas promised. But it belongs to someone else. Yeah. They stood together in the fading light, and Cole realized he'd stopped seeing Martha as just another settler. She was smart, strong, clear-eyed than most. The kind of person you wanted beside you when things went bad. When the shooting starts, Cole said quietly, you stay in the center of camp. Keep low. Don't try to be brave. What will you do? Whatever it takes to keep you alive. She looked at him, surprised. Then she reached out and took his hand, her fingers warm against his. Don't die for us, Cole. We're not worth it. Everyone's worth it, he said. That's the problem. We just forget sometimes. A gunshot cracked across the valley. Then another. Then a dozen more, tearing the evening quiet apart. Cole spun, eyes searching the darkness. Muzzle flashes lit up the southern hills. Riders poured down toward the camp, their war cries echoing across the grass. Everyone to positions, Cole shouted, drawing his gun. Here they come! But even as the settlers scrambled to their defenses, Cole's mind was racing, because something was wrong. The attack was coming from the south, not the west, not from Gideon's ranch, which meant this wasn't Gideon's doing. The first rider hit the wagon line at full gallop, firing wildly. Jacob dropped him with a single shot. More came behind, a flood of them, howling like demons. And then Cole saw Silas, running not toward the fight, but away from it, heading for the horses with a bag slung over his shoulder. In that instant, Cole understood. This was never about settlers and ranchers. It was never about land rights or fresh starts. It was about something much worse. And they'd all walked right into it. Cole's gun was already coming up as he shouted across the chaos. Jacob, watch the horses! Don't let anyone near them! But his warning came too late. Silas had reached the remuda, was cutting horses loose, and in the confusion of gunfire and screaming, nobody else had noticed. Cole started running toward him, but a rider cut across his path, forcing him to dive behind a water barrel as bullets chewed through the wood above his head. The attack was pure chaos, designed not to break through the defenses, but to create panic. The raiders, and Cole could see now they weren't Gideon's men at all, their clothes too ragged, their tactics too wild, swept in close, fired, then wheeled away before the settlers could draw proper aim. It was harassment, not assault, keeping everyone's eyes on the wrong threat. Cole dropped the rider with 2 quick shots and sprinted for the horses, but Silas was already mounted and thundering north into the darkness. 3 other men Cole didn't recognize broke from the camp's edge and followed him, their horses loaded with supplies. Damn it! Cole skidded to a stop, his mind racing. The whole thing was a setup, had been from the start. But set up for what? A woman's scream cut through the gunfire, high and terrible. Cole spun and saw Martha pulling a child behind a wagon as bullets kicked up dirt around them. He ran toward them, firing to keep the raiders' heads down, and grabbed Martha's arm. Get everyone to the center, now! What's happening? Just do it! Samuel was already shouting orders, pulling families back from the perimeter. The defensive positions Cole had set up were solid enough to hold against a sustained assault, but they left the flanks vulnerable to this kind of hit-and-run attack. The settlers were firing back now, and 2 more raiders went down, but the rest kept circling, howling, keeping the pressure on. Then, as suddenly as it started, the attack broke off. The raiders wheeled their horses and vanished into the night, their war cries fading into the distance. Silence crashed down like a weight. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then someone started crying. A child. Then another. Women rushed to find their families. Men lowered their rifles with shaking hands, breathing hard, eyes wide with the realization of how close death had come. Cole did a quick count. 2 settlers down, 1 man with a leg wound, another with blood spreading across his shoulder. Neither fatal if they got help fast. On the raider's side, 3 bodies lay sprawled in the grass. We held them, Tom Farrow said, his voice shaking with adrenaline. We actually held them. That wasn't the real attack, Cole said quietly. Samuel heard him. What? That was a distraction. Where's Silas? It took another 5 minutes for the truth to sink in. Silas Harper was gone, along with 3 men nobody recognized, men who'd joined the wagon train in the last few days, claiming to be settlers looking for land. They'd taken 4 horses, most of the camp's ammunition, and a strongbox containing the settlers' pooled money for buying supplies and seed. Jacob Renner brought the news to Samuel, his face dark with rage. That son of a bitch robbed us. It's worse than that, Cole said, examining one of the dead raiders. The man wore mismatched clothes and carried a Henry rifle that had seen better days. His face was scarred, his hands rough. This was no cattle hand. This was an outlaw, pure and simple. This was planned, the whole thing. Harper brought you here knowing what would happen. Why? Martha asked, her voice hollow. Why lead us into this valley if he was just going to rob us? Cole stood, pieces falling into place like cards in a crooked game. Because he needed you here, needed you to pick a fight with Gideon, start a war that would tie up Gideon's men, leave the ranch vulnerable. Vulnerable to what? Before Cole could answer, hoofbeats thundered from the west. Everyone grabbed weapons again, but these riders carried torches, and at their head rode Gideon Voss, his face illuminated by firelight and twisted with fury. He pulled up hard at the wagon line, his men fanning out behind him. Jack Drummond was there, and a dozen others, all armed and ready. What the hell happened here? Gideon demanded. Raiders hit us, Samuel said, stepping forward despite the rifles pointed his way. Came from the south about 20 minutes ago. Gideon's eyes swept the carnage. The dead men, the wounded settlers, the bullet-scarred wagons. Then his gaze landed on Cole. You were supposed to convince them to leave. They voted to stay. Then this is on you. Gideon turned to his men. Check those bodies. I want to know who they are. Jack dismounted and rolled one of the dead raiders over, studied his face in the torchlight. That's Ben Keller, rode with the Carson gang out of New Mexico. Carson, Gideon breathed, and Cole saw real fear flicker across his face for the first time. You're sure? Positive. I saw him on a wanted poster in Silver Creek 6 months back. Who's Carson? Samuel asked. It was Cole who answered, his voice grim. Frank Carson, outlaw, runs with about 20 men. They hit ranches, homesteads, anywhere there's money or livestock. They're not raiders, they're killers. Gideon turned on Samuel. Where's the man who brought you here? Harper? Gone. Ran when the shooting started. Which direction? North. Gideon swore viciously. He's going for my ranch. While I'm here, while my men are here, he's hitting the house. He wheeled his horse. "Jack, take 5 men. Get back there now. Everyone else, with me." "Wait," Cole said, and something in his voice made Gideon pause. "If Carson's already at your ranch, 6 men won't make a difference. He'll have the place surrounded." "Then what do you suggest? I sit here and let them take everything I've built?" "No, you think," Cole pointed at the dead raiders. "This was a distraction, same as the attack on the settlers. Carson wants you scattered, responding to threats, running in circles. The real play is somewhere else." "Where?" Cole's mind was working fast now, seeing the pattern. "Harper led these people here to start a fight with you. He made sure word got out about settlers on your land, made sure you'd react. Then he brings in Carson's gang to hit both sides, keep everyone busy fighting each other while they—" He stopped. "Your cattle. Where are your herds?" Gideon's face went pale. "South Range, about 500 head. That's the target. They're not here for your house or your money. They're here to rustle your cattle while everyone's too busy bleeding to stop them." The logic was brutal and perfect. Start a war between settlers and ranchers, use the chaos to steal everything of value, and disappear before anyone figured out what happened. By the time the smoke cleared, Carson and Harper would be long gone with a fortune in stolen cattle. Gideon sat his horse, torn between protecting his home and his livelihood. Finally, he made his choice. "Jack, take 10 men to the ranch. Fortify it. Don't let anyone in or out. The rest of you were riding for the South Range." He looked at Cole. "You coming?" Cole glanced at Samuel, at Martha, at the settlers huddled behind their wagons with their wounded and their fear. "Go," Samuel said. "We can hold here." "You sure?" "We don't have a choice. If Carson gets those cattle, Voss will blame us. We'll never be able to stay in this valley or any other." Cole knew he was right. The only way to end this was to stop Carson and Harper before they could finish what they'd started. "Keep everyone inside the wagons," Cole told Samuel. "Don't send out any patrols. Don't try to be heroes. Just survive until dawn." He swung onto his horse and rode out with Gideon's men, leaving the settlers behind in their circle of wagons, alone in the dark. They rode hard through the night, Gideon setting a punishing pace. The valley was beautiful even in darkness, but Cole barely saw it. His mind was on what was waiting for them at the South Range. After an hour, Gideon slowed and raised a hand. The men spread out, silent and professional. Ahead, Cole could see the dark shapes of cattle moving restlessly in the moonlight, and beyond them, the flicker of campfires. "How many?" Gideon whispered to Jack. "Hard to say. Maybe 15, 20. And we're 12. 13, Cole said. Gideon looked at him. "You don't owe me this. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because Harper used those settlers as pawns in his game, and I won't let him get away with it." Gideon nodded slowly. "All right then. Here's how we play it." The plan was simple and dangerous. Half the men would circle around to the east, cut off the escape route. The rest would hit from the west, driving the outlaws into the ambush. It wasn't fancy, but it might work if they moved fast and quiet. Cole went with the eastern group, along with Jack and 4 others. They dismounted a quarter-mile out and moved on foot through the tall grass, using the terrain to stay hidden. The cattle were nervous, sensing something wrong. Their low bellowing covered the sound of the men's approach. As they got closer, Cole could see the outlaw camp more clearly. They'd set up near a creek, horses picketed, men lounging around fires. Too relaxed, too confident. They thought the hard work was already done. Then Cole saw him. Silas Harper, sitting by the largest fire, counting money from the strongbox he'd stolen. Next to him sat a big man with a scarred face and dead eyes, Frank Carson himself. They were laughing about something, passing a bottle back and forth. Rage burned cold in Cole's chest. These men had used desperate families as tools, had orchestrated violence and death for nothing but profit, and now they sat there celebrating like it was all just a grand joke. Jack touched his arm, pointed. At the edge of the camp, tied to a tree, was a boy, maybe 10 years old, struggling against his ropes. Cole recognized him. Michael Haynes, Samuel's youngest son. They must have grabbed him during the chaos of the raid. "They've got a hostage," Cole whispered. Jack's face went grim. "Changes things." "Yeah." They waited, counting men, watching patterns. Cole counted 18 outlaws, all armed, all dangerous. The odds were bad, but they'd been bad before. A bird call echoed across the valley. Gideon's signal. They were in position. Jack looked at his men, then at Cole. "We go for the boy first. Everything else is secondary." Cole nodded. It was the right call, even if it made everything harder. The attack came like thunder. Gideon's men hit from the west, rifles blazing, and the outlaw camp exploded into chaos. Men dove for weapons, shouted warnings, returned fire. Cattle stampeded in every direction, their panicked bellowing drowning out the gunfire. Cole and Jack's group moved fast, using the confusion to close the distance. Two outlaws turned toward them, and Cole dropped them both before they could raise their weapons. Jack was already running for the boy, knife out to cut the ropes. Then everything went wrong. A woman stepped out from behind a wagon, and Cole's heart stopped. It was Martha. Blood ran down her face from a cut above her eye, and her hands were tied in front of her. Behind her, Silas Harper held a gun to her head, using her as a shield. "Well, well," Silas called out over the gunfire. "Look who decided to play hero!" And Cole's gun was already aimed, but he couldn't take the shot, not with Martha in the way. "Let her go, Silas." "Can't do that, Cole. She's my ticket out of here." Silas backed toward the horses, dragging Martha with him. "You and Voss can kill each other over this valley. Me and Mr. Carson will be long gone with the cattle and the money. There's nowhere to run. Gideon's men have the place surrounded. Then I guess I'll need a good shield." Silas pressed the gun harder against Martha's temple, and she gasped in pain. "Drop your weapon, or I paint the grass with her brains." Cole lowered his gun slowly, mind racing. He needed an opening, just 1 second of distraction. It came from an unexpected source. Michael Haynes, freed by Jack, didn't run for safety. Instead, he picked up a rock and threw it as hard as he could. It hit Silas in the shoulder, barely more than a tap, but it was enough. Silas flinched, turned his head, and in that instant, Martha drove her elbow back into his ribs and dropped. Cole fired 3 times. The first bullet took Silas in the chest, the second in the throat. The third was insurance. The outlaw guy dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Martha scrambled away and Cole ran to her, pulled her to her feet. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. Michael, where's Michael?" "Safe. Jack has him." Around them, the battle was turning. Gideon's men were professional and disciplined, while the outlaws were scattered and disorganized. Carson was shouting orders, trying to rally his men, but it was too late. The ambush had become a slaughter. Carson saw it too. He made a break for the horses, 3 of his men following. They mounted and spurred hard to the south, trying to escape the trap. Gideon went after them, and Cole followed. They rode flat out through the darkness, the gap closing. One of Carson's men fell when his horse stepped in a hole and went down hard. Another took a bullet from one of Gideon's ranch hands and tumbled from his saddle. That left just Carson and 1 other man. They were lighter, faster, and for a moment it looked like they might actually get away. Then Carson's remaining man made a mistake. He turned in his saddle to fire back at his pursuers, and the distraction cost him. His horse clipped a boulder, stumbled, and threw him. The man hit the ground hard and didn't move. Carson was alone now, but he kept riding. He knew these hills, knew the land, and he used every trick he had. But Gideon knew it better. The rancher cut east, taking a shortcut through a dry wash, and came out ahead of Carson's position. They met in a small clearing, both horses blown and heaving. Carson had his gun out, but so did Gideon. "End of the line, Frank," Gideon said. Carson's scarred face twisted into something ugly. "You think you've won? There's always another valley, another herd, another score." "Not for you, not anymore." Carson's gun came up. So did Gideon's. 2 shots cracked across the clearing, so close together they almost sounded like one. Carson fell from his horse, dead before he hit the ground. Gideon swayed in his saddle, blood spreading across his side, but he stayed mounted. Cole reached them seconds later, dismounted fast. "How bad?" "Bad enough," Gideon grunted. He slid down from his horse, one hand pressed against the wound. "But I've had worse." They could hear the sounds of gunfire fading in the distance. The battle was over. The outlaws who weren't dead were running, and Gideon's men were letting them go. The cattle were scattered across miles of range, but they could be rounded up. The important thing was that Carson's gang was broken. Cole helped Gideon sit against a rock, pressed a bandana against the wound to slow the bleeding. It was high on the ribs, probably not fatal if they got him help soon.
You saved my herd, Gideon said, his voice tight with pain. Wasn't about the herd. Was about stopping Harper and Carson from destroying everything. Those settlers, they didn't know? No. They were just people looking for hope, and Harper sold it to them with a smile and a lie. Gideon was quiet for a moment. Then he said, what I said before, about Daniel, about blaming you. You had every right. No, I didn't. Gideon's breath caught as pain lanced through him. You tried to save him. Jack told me what really happened, how you carried Daniel half a mile under fire trying to get him to safety, how you stayed with him at the end. Cole's throat tightened. Didn't matter, he still died. We all die, Mercer. Question is what we do with the time we have. Daniel chose to be brave, chose to save his friends. That was his decision, not yours. Gideon looked up at the stars, and in the moonlight, Cole could see tears on the older man's face. I've wasted 5 years hating you for something you didn't do. 5 years I could have spent honoring his memory instead of nursing a grudge. You had to grieve in your own way. Well, I'm done grieving, and I'm done hating. Gideon held out his hand. We square, Mercer? Cole took the hand, felt the strength still in it despite the wound. Yeah, we're square. They rode back to the outlaw camp slowly, Gideon barely staying in the saddle. The battle was over. Bodies lay scattered across the ground. Some outlaws, some cattle that had caught stray bullets. Gideon's men were securing prisoners, collecting weapons, tending to their own wounded. Jack ran up as they arrived. Boss, you're hit! I'll live. Get someone to patch me up. Gideon looked around. How many did we lose? 2 dead, 5 wounded. But we broke them. Carson's gang is finished. And the cattle? Scattered to hell and back. But they're ours. We'll round them up come morning. Martha appeared, still pale but steady. She'd cleaned the blood from her face and found Michael, who clung to her now with the desperate grip of a child who'd seen too much. Is he? She started, looking at Gideon. I'm fine, ma'am, Gideon said, though his face was gray with pain. Your boy. He's got courage. Threw that rock like a soldier. Michael's eyes went wide. Martha hugged him tighter. We need to get back to the wagons, Cole said. Make sure the rest of the settlers are all right. Take my men, Gideon said. All of them. I'm not going anywhere tonight. By the time they reached the wagon circle, dawn was breaking over the valley, painting the sky pink and gold. The settlers saw them coming and rushed out, relief and fear mixing on their faces. Samuel met them first, saw his son, and dropped to his knees, pulling Michael into a fierce embrace. Thank heaven, thank heaven. Harper's dead, Cole told him. Carson too. The gang's broken. It's over. Samuel stood, still holding Michael. And Mr. Voss? Wounded but alive. He sends his men to help you. Cole paused. And he says the southern land I mentioned before. The offer still stands. The settlers were quiet, absorbing this. Then someone asked, what about this valley? Does he still want us gone? Cole looked at the valley, bathed in morning light, beautiful and brutal all at once. I don't know. That's between you and him, but he's not your enemy anymore. Martha stepped forward. What about you, Cole? What will you do? That was the question, wasn't it? He'd come back to the valley running from his past, got dragged into a war he didn't want, and somehow ended up saving the people he'd tried to abandon. Now the fighting was done. The ghosts were laid to rest, and for the first time in 5 years, he had a choice about what came next. Before he could answer, one of Gideon's men came riding hard from the south. Mr. Mercer, we got a problem. Cole's hand went to his gun. What kind of problem? It's Mr. Voss. He's taken a turn. The wound's worse than he thought. He's asking for you. Cole looked at Martha, at Samuel, at the settlers who'd survived a night of hell and were still standing. Then he mounted his horse and rode south without another word, because some debts couldn't be paid with bullets or blood. Sometimes all you could give a dying man was the truth. When Cole reached Gideon, the rancher was propped against a saddle, his breathing shallow and labored. The bandages around his ribs were soaked through with blood. Jack knelt beside him, his face grim. I sent for the doctor from Silver Creek, Jack said quietly. But it's a 6-hour ride. Gideon's eyes found Cole. Not gonna make it that long. Don't talk like that.
Don't lie to me either. I've seen enough dying men to know the look.
Gideon coughed, and blood flecked his lips. Need you to do something for me. Name it. The ranch.
My men. The valley. Gideon's hand gripped Cole's arm with surprising strength. Someone's got to hold it together, keep it from falling apart. That's not me. Jack can do it. He knows the land, knows the business. Jack's a good man, but he's not a leader, not like you. Gideon's eyes were fierce despite the pain. You kept those settlers alive. Stopped Carson, even convinced me to let go of old hate. You're the man for this. I can't stay here. This is your valley, not mine. It's just land, Mercer. Grass and water and dirt. It's the people who matter. Those settlers need someone to help them build something real. My men need someone to give them purpose beyond just running cattle. Gideon coughed again, harder this time. Promise me. Promise you'll see it through. Cole wanted to refuse. Wanted to say he was done with responsibility. Done with trying to save people who couldn't save themselves. But he looked at Gideon's face, saw the man who'd carried grief for 5 years and had finally let it go, and he couldn't deny him this last request. I promise. Gideon's grip loosened, his breathing eased slightly. Good. That's good. He closed his eyes. Maybe Daniel was right about you after all. What do you mean? He said you were the kind of man who'd walk through fire to do the right thing, even when it cost you everything. Gideon's voice was fading now. Guess he knew you better than I did. The sun climbed higher, warming the valley, and Gideon Voss slipped away quietly, like a man who'd finally found peace after a long war. They buried Gideon Voss on a hill overlooking the valley he'd spent 20 years building, under a sky so blue it hurt to look at. His ranch hands stood in a silent line, hats in hands, faces carved from the same hard stone as the mountains around them. The settlers came too, uncertain and respectful, knowing that whatever came next depended on how this moment played out. Cole stood at the grave's edge, dirt still under his fingernails from helping dig it, and tried to find words that mattered. He'd never been good at eulogies. The war had given him too many chances to practice, and he'd learned that pretty words didn't bring the dead back or ease the weight of their absence. Gideon Voss was a hard man, Cole began, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd. But he was honest. He built something real in this valley, something worth fighting for. And in the end, he died protecting it from men who wanted to turn it into nothing but profit and ash. Jack Drummond stood nearby, his young face aged by grief and the weight of what was coming. The other ranch hands looked to him now, waiting to see if he'd step into Gideon's boots or if everything would fall apart. He asked me to see things through here, Cole continued, to help make sure his work didn't die with him. I gave him my word, and I intend to keep it. He looked at Jack. But this ranch needs someone who knows it, who's bled for it. Jack Drummond will run the day-to-day operations. The rest of us will figure out how to make this valley work for everyone. Samuel stepped forward from the settler group. What does that mean exactly? It means we try something different, Cole said. Gideon owned the land, but he's gone now. The valley's big enough for cattle and farms both. We divide it fair, set boundaries, make agreements that work for everyone. And if we can't agree, someone called out from the settlers, then we're all fools, and we deserve whatever comes next. Cole's voice hardened. But I'm done with fighting over dirt. We just spent 2 days bleeding because men like Harper and Carson saw this place as nothing but something to steal. I won't let their kind win by turning us against each other. The crowd was quiet, absorbing this. Then one of Gideon's older hands, a grizzled man named Pete Hoskins, spoke up. What gives you the right to decide? You're not from here. You're just some drifter who wandered in half dead. You're right, Cole said. I don't have any right, but I'm the one Gideon trusted with his last breath, and I'm the one who's going to see this through. You don't like it? There's the trail. No one's stopping you from leaving. Pete's jaw worked, but he didn't move. Neither did anyone else. Then it's settled, Cole said. We meet tomorrow at the ranch house, settlers and ranch hands both. We'll draw up terms, set boundaries, figure out how to make this work. He looked around at all of them. And anyone who can't put aside old grudges and new anger can ride out now because I'm not interested in nursing hate. We've all had enough of that. They dispersed slowly, the settlers returning to their wagons, the ranch hands to their bunkhouse. Only Martha remained, standing a little apart, watching Cole with an expression he couldn't quite read. "That was a good thing you said," she told him, "about making the valley work for everyone. Saying it's easy, doing it's going to be hell. But you'll try anyway." "Gave my word." Martha moved closer, her voice dropping. "My father wants to take the southern land offer. Says this valley's cursed with too much blood now. He's trying to convince the other families to go with him." Cole felt something twist in his chest. "What do you want?" "I don't know anymore. I came west thinking I knew what I was looking for. A fresh start. A place to build a life. But after everything that's happened," she trailed off, looking toward the valley spread out below them, "I'm not sure anywhere is safe." "Nowhere is. Safety's an illusion. The best you can hope for is somewhere worth the risk." "Is this valley worth it?" Cole thought about that. About Gideon dying to protect it. About the settlers who'd refused to run even when smart money said they should. About the blood already soaked into this earth and whether more would have to follow. "I think it could be," he said finally, "if we're smart enough not to waste what we've been given." Martha studied his face, and he saw something shift in her expression. "You're going to stay, aren't you? Even if all the settlers leave." "I promised." "And that's enough? A promise to a dying man?" "It has to be. I've broken too many promises in my life. I'm done with that." She nodded slowly, then surprised him by taking his hand. Her fingers were calloused from work, strong and warm. "Then I'll stay too. At least for now. Someone needs to make sure you don't get yourself killed trying to make peace between people who want to hate each other." Before Cole could respond, Jack came running up the hill, his face tight with alarm. "We got a problem. Big one." Cole's hand went instinctively to his gun. "What now?" "Some of Carson's men, the ones who got away. They're holed up at the old mine north of here. Got themselves a hostage." "Who?" Jack's expression went grim. "Sarah Farrow, Tom's wife. They grabbed her when she went to fetch water from the creek this morning." The news hit Cole like a fist. Sarah Farrow was young, maybe 25, with 2 small children. Tom had been one of the few settlers who'd shown real courage during the raid, standing his ground even when terror had him shaking. "How many men?" Cole asked. 4, maybe 5. They're demanding horses, supplies, and safe passage out of the valley. Say if we try to take them, they'll kill her." Martha's hand tightened on Cole's. "We have to get her back." "I know." Cole's mind was already working through possibilities, none of them good. The old mine was defensible, with only one way in and clear sightlines in all directions. A direct assault would get Sarah killed, but giving the outlaws what they wanted would just set them loose to hurt more people down the line. "Get Tom," Cole said to Jack. "Bring him to the ranch house, and round up 6 of your best men, ones who can keep their heads in a tight spot." "What are you planning?" "To get her back alive. After that, we'll see." The ranch house was a solid structure of timber and stone, built to last. Inside, maps of the valley covered one wall, showing property lines, water sources, pasture lands. Cole studied them while they waited for Jack to return with Tom and the others. The old mine was marked on the map, about 5 miles north of the main ranch. It had played out years ago, abandoned when the silver vein ran dry. The entrance was a narrow shaft cut into the hillside, with the mountain at its back and open ground all around. Perfect for defense, terrible for assault. Tom Farrow arrived looking like a man barely holding himself together. His eyes were red, his hands shaking. "They have Sarah, they have my wife." "I know," Cole said, "and we're going to get her back." "How?" "They said they'd kill her if we tried anything. They said that because they know their position is strong. They want us scared and willing to negotiate." Cole tapped the map. "But scared people make mistakes, and I'm betting they're counting on that." Jack entered with 6 ranch hands, all hard-looking men who carried their weapons like they knew how to use them. Pete Hoskins was among them, and despite his earlier challenge to Cole's authority, he looked ready for whatever came next. "Here's the situation," Cole began, laying it out plain. 4 or 5 outlaws, 1 hostage, defensible position. They want horses and supplies, which tells me they're planning to run. Question is, do we let them? "No," Tom said immediately. "We can't trust them to keep their word. Soon as they get what they want, they'll kill Sarah anyway. Maybe, or maybe they're desperate enough to take the deal and run while they can. Cole looked around at the assembled men. Either way, we can't give them what they want. Not because I don't care about Sarah, but because letting killers walk free just means more dead down the line. Then what do we do? Pete asked. Cole pointed to the map. The mine has one entrance, but it also has ventilation shafts. 3 of them, cut through to the surface about 50 yards back from the main shaft. They're narrow, maybe 2 feet across, but they'll carry sound. Understanding dawned on Jack's face. We can hear what they're saying inside. And more than that, we can use them. Cole's finger traced a line on the map. We approach from the east, staying low. 2 men work their way to the ventilation shafts. The rest of us position around the entrance, out of sight. We make them think we're willing to deal, string them along, buy time. Time for what? Tom asked. For them to get comfortable, to let their guard down. And when they do, we take them. It was risky, built on assumptions about how desperate men would behave. But it was better than a frontal assault that would definitely get Sarah killed. I'm going, Tom said. That's my wife in there. No, Cole said firmly. You're too close to this. You'll react instead of think, and that'll get people killed. The hell I will. I'm not sitting here while… Tom. Martha had entered quietly, and now she put a hand on his arm. Cole's right. Let him handle this. You need to stay here for your children. They've already lost enough. Tom looked like he wanted to argue, but the fight went out of him. He slumped into a chair, head in his hands. Just bring her back, please. Cole gathered the team outside. The sun was past its peak now, shadows starting to lengthen across the valley. They had maybe 4 hours of good light left, and this needed to happen before dark. They rode north in silence, splitting up a mile from the mine. Jack and Pete went east to approach the ventilation shafts from the blind side of the hill. The others spread out to encircle the mine entrance, moving slow and careful, using every bit of cover the land provided. Cole worked his way to within 50 yards of the mine entrance and settled behind a cluster of boulders. From here, he could see the dark mouth of the shaft and the scattered equipment left behind when the mine closed. A thin trail of smoke rose from somewhere inside, probably a fire for cooking. He waited, watching, and after 20 minutes, a man appeared at the entrance. Young, maybe 22, with a nervous energy that spoke of fear and bravado mixed together. He scanned the valley, rifle held ready, then called back into the mine. Still clear! A voice answered from inside, too muffled for Cole to make out the words. The young outlaw nodded and ducked back into the darkness. Cole counted. 1 at the entrance, at least 1 more deeper inside with Sarah. That left 2 or 3 unaccounted for, assuming Jack's estimate of 4 to 5 men was accurate. A bird call echoed across the hill. Jack's signal. He was in position at the ventilation shafts. Cole responded with his own call, a mourning dove, telling Jack to proceed. Minutes crawled past. Then Jack's voice drifted up from somewhere below, pitched to carry through one of the ventilation shafts, and into the mine below. You boys in there! We need to talk! The response was immediate. Shouting from inside the mine, movement at the entrance. 2 more men appeared, both armed, both looking around wildly for the source of the voice. Who's that? Where are you? Doesn't matter where I am, Jack called back. What matters is we can do this easy or hard. You choose. One of the outlaws, a heavy-set man with a scar running down his cheek, stepped forward. We got a woman in here. You try anything, she dies. Nobody wants that. We're willing to deal, but we need proof she's alive. There was a pause, then a woman's voice, thin and frightened. I'm here. They haven't hurt me yet, but… Shut up! The scarred man's voice was sharp. You get proof when we get horses. Jack kept his voice calm, reasonable. We're getting them ready now, but it'll take time to round them up, get supplies together. You need to be patient. We've been patient. We want out of here before dark. And you'll get out. But these things take time. You rush, someone makes a mistake, and this ends badly for everyone. Cole used the distraction to move closer, cutting the distance to 40 yards, then 30. The other ranch hands were doing the same, tightening the noose without being seen. The outlaws were focused on the disembodied voice coming from the ventilation shafts, trying to figure out where Jack actually was. From his new position, Cole could see into the mine entrance. The interior opened up about 20 feet in, widening into what must have been the main work chamber. He caught glimpses of movement inside, shadows moving against the flicker of firelight. The scarred outlaw was getting agitated. "How do we know this isn't a trick? How do we know you're not surrounding us right now?" "You don't," Jack said honestly. "But what choice do you have? You can't stay in there forever, and if we wanted to rush you, we'd have done it already. We're trying to end this without anyone dying. Your boss already died. Gideon Voss is dead, and that means nobody's running this valley anymore." "Voss is dead," Jack agreed. "But someone's still running things, and that someone wants you gone more than he wants you dead. Take the deal." Cole caught movement to his left. Pete Hoskins had worked his way around to the far side of the entrance, hidden behind an old ore cart. He met Cole's eyes, nodded once. Ready. But they needed the outlaws outside, away from Sarah. As long as they stayed in the mine with her, any shooting would be a death sentence for the hostage. "All right," the scarred man finally said. "We'll deal, but we want 4 horses saddled and ready, food for a week, ammunition, and we keep the woman until we're clear of the valley." "No deal on the woman," Jack called back. "You get supplies and horses, but she stays here." "Then no deal." The outlaw's voice rose with panic and anger. "We keep her until we're safe. You keep her and your dead men. Every rancher, every settler, everyone in this valley will hunt you down. You'll never be safe, never be able to stop running." Jack paused, letting that sink in. "But you let her go, take your horses and go, and we let you ride out. Clean break, fresh start." Cole could almost hear the outlaws arguing inside the mine, voices rising and falling. They were scared, cornered, and scared men were unpredictable. This could break either way. Then a new voice spoke up, older and colder than the others. "Bring the horses to the entrance. When we see them, we'll send the woman out. After she's clear, we ride. Anyone follows us, we start shooting, and we won't stop until we hit Mexico." That had to be the leader, the one calling the shots. Cole tried to get a look at him, but couldn't see deep enough into the mine. "Agreed," Jack said. "Give us 30 minutes." Cole used the bird call again, a different pattern this time. Jack would understand. Keep them talking, buy more time. He worked his way back from his position and circled around to where Jack and Pete's horses were hidden. Jack emerged from behind the hill, breathing hard. "Did you see inside?" "Some. At least 3 men, maybe 4. And they're getting desperate." Desperate's when they're most dangerous. Or most vulnerable. Cole pulled out his knife, tested the edge. How good are those ventilation shafts? Could a man fit through them? Jack's eyes widened. Maybe, if he was thin enough and didn't mind tight spaces. "I've been in worse." Cole looked back toward the mine. "We keep them focused on the negotiation, on the horses, on the entrance. Meanwhile, I go in through the shafts, get Sarah out before they realize what's happening." "That's insane. You'll get stuck, or they'll hear you, or..." "You got a better idea?" Jack didn't. None of them did. This was the kind of plan that worked in desperate moments, or got everyone killed, with no middle ground. "All right," Jack said finally. "But you'll need backup. Pete can..." "No. 1 man is a risk. 2 is a disaster. I go alone." Cole checked his gun, made sure his knife was secure. "When you hear shooting, you come in fast. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Just come." He didn't give Jack time to argue. He moved back up the hill, circling wide to approach the ventilation shafts from the blind side. The shafts were exactly where the old mine map said they'd be. 3 narrow holes cut into the earth and reinforced with timber frames. The third one was the largest, maybe 2.5 feet across. Tight, but possible. Cole looked down into the darkness, saw nothing but black. He couldn't hear anything either, which meant he was far enough from the main chamber that the outlaws wouldn't hear him. Yet. He lowered himself into the shaft feet first, using his arms to control his descent. The walls were rough stone, cold and damp. The fit was tighter than he'd hoped. His shoulders scraped against the sides, and he had to turn slightly to squeeze through. Down he went, inch by inch, using his hands against the walls to keep from dropping too fast. The darkness was absolute. The air grew stale and heavy. Somewhere below he could hear voices, muffled and distant. His foot hit something solid, the bottom of the shaft. He'd dropped maybe 20 feet, and now he was in a horizontal tunnel barely wide enough to crawl through. He could see a faint glow ahead, firelight bleeding through cracks in the rock. Cole moved forward on his belly, pushing with his toes, pulling with his fingers. Every sound seemed impossibly loud in the confined space. His breathing echoed. His clothes scraped against stone. If the outlaws were listening, they'd hear him for sure. The tunnel opened up slightly, and he could see through a gap in the rocks into the main chamber. 4 men, just as he'd thought. The scarred leader, the young nervous one, and 2 others he hadn't seen before. Sarah Farrow sat against the far wall, hands bound, face streaked with tears but eyes defiant. The outlaws were arguing, voices tense. "We should have left an hour ago," the young one was saying. "Soon as we grabbed her, we should have run." "Run where?" the leader snapped. "We got no supplies, no plan. This way we get horses and a head start." "This way we get surrounded and shot," one of the others said. "I say we kill the woman and shoot our way out." "You kill her, and we got nothing to bargain with." "We got nothing anyway. You think they're really gonna let us ride out of here? They'll follow us until we're dead." Sarah spoke up, her voice shaking but clear. "They will if you don't hurt me. Cole Mercer keeps his word. Everyone knows that." The leader backhanded her, and she cried out. Cole's hand tightened on his knife, but he forced himself to stay still. "Not yet. Wait for the right moment." "Cole Mercer's the one we should have killed first," the leader growled. "Him and that rancher both. This whole thing went wrong when they teamed up." "Well, the rancher's dead now," the young one said. "Harper said so before he ran. Said Voss took a bullet and bled out." "And where's Harper now?" "Dead too, probably. We're the only ones left, and we're trapped in this damn hole because you wanted to grab a hostage." The argument escalated, voices rising. Cole used the noise to cover his movement, squeezing through the gap in the rocks. He was in the chamber now, hidden behind a pile of old mining equipment in the shadows beyond the firelight. Sarah saw him. Her eyes went wide, and for a heartbeat, Cole thought she'd give him away. But she was smarter than that. She looked away quickly, kept her expression neutral. Cole waited, watching the outlaws. They were spread out, not quite relaxed, but not on full alert either. 3 had their backs to him. Only the scarred leader was facing his direction, but his attention was on the argument, not the shadows. Outside, Jack's voice called again. "We've got your horses, 4 of them saddled and ready. Send the woman out, and they're yours." "Hut." The outlaws moved toward the entrance, drawn by the promise of escape. This was the moment. Cole stepped out of the shadows, moved fast and silent toward Sarah. He had his knife out, was cutting the ropes on her wrists when the young outlaw turned and saw him. "Behind you!" Everything exploded into motion. The leader spun, gun coming up. Cole shoved Sarah toward the entrance and drew his own weapon. The first shot went wide, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Cole fired back, caught the leader in the shoulder, spinning him around. The other outlaws were scrambling for position, caught between Cole behind them and Jack's men rushing the entrance. Gunfire filled the chamber, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness like lightning. Sarah ran for the entrance, and Pete caught her, pulled her to safety. Cole dove behind the mining equipment as bullets chewed through the wood above his head. He fired blind, heard someone scream, fired again. One of the outlaws broke for the back of the chamber, trying to escape through the mine's deeper tunnels. Jack shot him in the leg, and he went down hard. The young nervous one dropped his gun and raised his hands, shouting surrender. That left the scarred leader and 1 other, both wounded, both still fighting. The leader was bleeding from his shoulder, but had taken cover behind a support beam, firing methodically despite the pain. "Give it up," Cole shouted. "You're done." "Go to hell." The other outlaw tried to rush the entrance and took 3 bullets for his trouble. He dropped and didn't move. Now it was just the leader, alone and bleeding, with no way out and no future but a rope. "Last chance," Jack called from the entrance. "Throw down your gun." The scarred man's laugh was bitter and broken. "You think I'm stupid? You think I don't know what happens next? I hang either way." "Maybe," Cole said, stepping into view with his gun aimed steady. "But you can hang brave or die like a cornered rat. Your choice." For a long moment, the outlaw just stared at him. Then slowly, he lowered his gun. Not surrendering exactly, just tired. Too tired to keep fighting a battle he'd already lost. Jack's men rushed in, disarmed him, pulled him out into the daylight. The mine fell quiet except for the ringing in everyone's ears from the gunfire. Cole checked the other outlaws. 2 dead, One wounded but alive, one surrendered. It could have been worse. It had been worse before. Outside, Sarah was reunited with Tom, who'd ridden up despite being told to stay back. They clung to each other, both crying, both safe. The other settlers had followed, and the ranch hands, and now everyone stood in the fading afternoon light, looking at the bodies and the captured outlaws and each other. "What do we do with them?" Pete asked, nodding toward the prisoners. "Take them to Silver Creek," Cole said. "Let the law handle it." "We are the law out here," Pete said, "and we got trees and rope." "No." Cole's voice was hard. "We don't become what we just fought. These men get a trial. They get judged proper. We do it any other way. We're no better than Carson's gang." Pete looked like he wanted to argue, but he saw the finality in Cole's expression and backed down. The prisoners were loaded onto horses, hands tied, under heavy guard. They'd make the ride to Silver Creek in the morning. As the crowd dispersed, Martha found Cole sitting on a boulder away from the others, cleaning blood off his knife. "Are you hurt?" she asked. "Not mine." She sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Tom says you saved Sarah's life. Says if you hadn't gone in when you did, they would have killed her. Maybe, or maybe they would have taken the deal and left her alive. We'll never know." "You don't take compliments well, do you?" Cole looked at her, saw the exhaustion in her face that probably matched his own. "I'm not good at a lot of things, but I'm trying to learn." "Well, you're doing better than you think." Martha stood, offered him her hand. "Come on. My father's making dinner for everyone back at camp, settlers and ranch hands both. Says if we're going to share this valley, we might as well start breaking bread together." Cole took her hand, let her pull him to his feet. "Your father's a smart man." "He is, and he thinks you are too, even if he doesn't say it." They walked back toward the wagons together, and for the first time since Cole had been pulled half dead from the desert, he felt something like hope stirring in his chest. It was fragile, built on promises and possibilities that could still fall apart, but it was real. The valley spread out before them in the golden light of evening, beautiful and scarred, just like everything else worth keeping. The dinner that night became something none of them had expected, a beginning disguised as a simple meal. Long tables were assembled from wagon boards and sawhorses, set up in the open ground between the settler camp and where Gideon's men had made their own fire. The division was still there, invisible but real, a line drawn by days of tension and violence. But people crossed it anyway, carrying plates and coffee, finding seats beside strangers who were slowly becoming something else. Cole sat at the far end of one table, watching it all unfold with a mixture of hope and wariness. Martha was across from him, helping her mother serve stew to a group of ranch hands who looked uncomfortable being waited on by settler women. Samuel moved between the tables, shaking hands, learning names, building bridges with nothing but words and genuine interest. Jack Drummond appeared beside Cole, a plate in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. He sat down heavily, the weight of the day written in every line of his face. "Never thought I'd see this," Jack said, nodding toward the mingling crowd. "Ranch hands and settlers breaking bread together. Gideon would have had a fit." "Gideon gave me his blessing to try something different," Cole said. "I think he knew, at the end, that the old ways weren't working anymore." "Maybe." Jack took a long drink of coffee. "But knowing something and living with it are different things. Half my men still don't trust these settlers. Think they're going to steal our water, overgraze the land, bring in more trouble. And the other half? Are willing to give it a chance, mostly because they trust you." Jack's eyes found Cole's. "Don't make them regret it." Before Cole could respond, a commotion arose near one of the wagons. Voices raised in anger, the sound of a scuffle. Cole was on his feet instantly, Jack right behind him. They pushed through the gathering crowd to find Pete Hoskins and Tom Farrow locked together, Pete's hand gripping Tom's collar, Tom's face flushed with rage. "Say that again," Pete was shouting. "Say it to my face." "I said your boss started this whole mess," Tom shot back. "If Gideon hadn't been so damned stubborn about keeping every inch of land, none of this would have happened." Pete drew back his fist, but Cole caught his wrist mid-swing. "Enough. He's blaming Mr. Voss for everything, for Carson, for Harper, for all of it." "And you're blaming the settlers for having the nerve to want a home," Cole said, his voice quiet but hard as iron. He looked at both men. "You want to know who's really to blame? Harper, Carson, Men who saw decent people and saw nothing but tools to use and throw away. You want to honor the dead? Then don't give those bastards what they wanted by tearing each other apart. Pete jerked his arm free, breathing hard. Tom took a step back, some of the anger draining from his face. Mr. Voss wasn't perfect, Cole continued, addressing the whole crowd now because everyone had stopped eating to watch. He was hard and stubborn, and he carried grudges too long. But he also built something real in this valley, something worth protecting, and in the end, he died trying to save it from men who wanted to destroy it. He turned to Tom. Your people came here desperate and hopeful, and Harper exploited that. Used you as bait in a game you didn't know you were playing. Neither side is to blame for what happened, but both sides get to choose what happens next. The silence that followed was heavy with unsaid things. Then Samuel stepped forward. Cole's right. We've all lost enough. My vote is we figure out how to make this work. He looked at Pete. You willing to try? Pete's jaw worked. His hands clenched and unclenched. Finally, he nodded once, sharp and reluctant. For Mr. Voss, he asked Cole to see it through, and I'll honor that. Tom extended his hand. Pete looked at it for a long moment, then took it. The handshake was brief and awkward, but it was real. The tension broke like a fever, and people went back to their meals, the conversation resuming but with a different quality now. Something had been tested and hadn't broken. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Martha found Cole later, after the tables had been cleared and people had drifted off to their own camps. He was standing at the edge of the firelight, looking out at the valley silhouetted against the stars. You handled that well, she said. Handled it barely. Another few seconds and we would have had a brawl. But we didn't. You stopped it. She stood beside him, following his gaze. What are you thinking about? How to make this actually work? Tonight was good, but it's not enough. We need agreements, boundaries, rules that everyone can live with. My father wants to meet tomorrow. Settler representatives and ranch representatives. Draw up something official. That's a start, but it's going to take more than words on paper. What else? Cole thought about that. Trust. And that only comes with time and proof. We need small victories. Things people can point to and say, see, this is working. Building a shared well, helping each other with harvests, standing together when the next trouble comes, because trouble always comes. Martha was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm scared. The admission surprised him. Martha hadn't shown much fear through everything that had happened. She'd been steady when others panicked, strong when others broke. Of what? He asked gently. That this won't last. That we're building something beautiful that's just going to fall apart the moment you leave. I'm not leaving. You say that now. But you're a wanderer, Cole. I can see it in you. This valley, these people, this life. It's not what you're built for. Sooner or later, you'll hear the call of somewhere else, and you'll go. Cole wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong. But he couldn't, because part of him knew she might be right. He'd spent 5 years drifting, running from ghosts and guilt, never staying anywhere long enough to put down roots. The idea of settling, of becoming part of something permanent, was foreign and frightening. I gave Gideon my word, he said finally. That means something to me. I know it does, but promises to the dead don't keep you warm at night. They don't build a future. She turned to face him, and in the starlight, her eyes were luminous and sad. I'm not asking for forever, Cole. I'm just asking if you're capable of it. Before he could answer, she walked away, leaving him alone with the question hanging in the air like smoke. The meeting the next day was held in Gideon's ranch house, a room that had seen years of hard decisions and harder conversations. Samuel brought 5 other settlers, Jacob Renner, Tom Farrow, and 3 family heads whose opinions carried weight in the Wagon camp. Jack brought Pete and 4 senior ranch hands, men who'd worked this land long enough to know every creek and canyon. Cole sat at the head of the table, a map of the valley spread before them, and wondered how the hell he'd ended up here, a man with no stake in this land, trying to broker peace between people who had every reason to hate each other. All right, he began. We're here to figure out how to divide the valley fairly. Ranch needs grazing land for cattle. Settlers need farmland and water. Both need timber and access to the river. Question is how we split it without one side feeling cheated. The valley's always been open range, Pete said immediately. Cattle roam free. You start fencing off farms, you cut off migration routes, water access. It doesn't work. Then we designate zones, Jacob countered. Northern Valley for grazing, southern for farming. Clear boundaries that everyone respects. And when the cattle drift south, when settlers need more land and push north, you can't just draw a line and expect nature to respect it. The argument went back and forth, voices rising, old tensions surfacing. Cole let it run for a while, letting people say what needed saying. Then he held up his hand. "Here's what I see," he said, pointing to the map. The river runs north to south through the center of the valley. East side has better soil for farming, but less timber. West side has rougher ground, better for grazing, and forest in the foothills. We split it down the river, east for settlers, west for ranch. River itself stays shared. No one owns it. Everyone has access. "What about the timber?" someone asked. "Shared. Both sides need it. We set up a rotation, harvest sustainably, and force it together." Samuel studied the map. "That gives us less land than we hoped for. It gives you enough. And it gives you something more valuable, neighbors who won't shoot you for being here." Cole looked around the table. "This only works if both sides give up something. If you're not a little unhappy with the deal, it probably isn't fair." There was grudging agreement in the faces around the table. They spent the next 3 hours hammering out details. Water rights. Grazing boundaries. What happened if cattle damaged crops or settlers blocked traditional migration routes? It was tedious, occasionally heated, but slowly a framework emerged. By the time the sun started to set, they had something that resembled an agreement. Not perfect. Not what anyone had dreamed of when they came to the valley. But workable. Real. Samuel signed first, his signature bold and clear. The other settler representatives followed. Then Jack, his hand steady despite the weight of betraying everything Gideon had fought for. The ranch hands signed one by one, some quickly, some with visible reluctance. Cole signed last, as witness and guarantor. His name on paper, binding him to this place and these people in ways he hadn't fully understood when he made his promise to Gideon. "There it is," Samuel said, looking at the signed document. "The Sweetwater Valley Agreement. Has a nice ring to it." "Sounds better than the alternative," Pete muttered, but there was less anger in his voice than before. They shook hands all around, the atmosphere easier now that the hard work was done. As people filed out, Jack pulled Cole aside. "You know this is just the beginning, right? Paper doesn't change hearts. Some of my men are already talking about leaving, going to work for outfits that don't truck with settlers. Let them go. Anyone who can't live with the new way will just poison the well if they stay." "And what about you? You planning to stick around and enforce this thing?" Cole looked out the window at the valley, at the settlers' wagons to the east and the ranch buildings to the west. Two separate camps slowly, painfully learning to coexist. "For now," he said, and hoped it was true. The days that followed fell into a rhythm of work and careful optimism. Settlers began breaking ground on the eastern side of the river, laying out farms in neat rows, while ranch hands drove cattle to the western range. There were conflicts. A stray cow trampled a newly planted field. Angry words were exchanged, and Cole had to intervene before it escalated into violence. A settler accidentally blocked a creek that fed a cattle watering hole, and again Cole found himself mediating, finding solutions that satisfied no one completely but prevented bloodshed. Slowly, grudgingly, people started to adapt. Jacob Renner proved invaluable, organizing the settlers with military efficiency, making sure boundaries were respected and grievances were brought to Cole rather than settled with fists. On the ranch side, Jack stepped fully into his role as foreman, commanding respect from men who'd served under Gideon and earning it from those who doubted him. 2 weeks after the agreement was signed, Cole was riding the boundary line when he saw something that made him pull up short. A group of settlers and ranch hands working together to repair a bridge across the river. They were laughing, passing tools back and forth, moving with the easy cooperation of men who'd found common purpose. Pete saw Cole watching and walked over, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Bridge washed out in last night's rain," Pete explained. "Settlers can't get their wagons across, and we can't move cattle to the south range. Figured we'd fix it together, get it done faster." "Good thinking," Pete shrugged. "Wasn't my idea. Was Tom's. He came over this morning, asked if we had timber to spare. I figured, why not? We all need the bridge. It was a small thing, but Cole recognized it for what it was. Exactly the kind of small victory he'd told Martha they needed. Proof that the agreement could work, that people could choose cooperation over conflict. Make sure everyone knows about this, Cole said. Let them see what's possible when folks work together. Already spreading, some of the other settlers are talking about helping us with the fall roundup. Say they need to learn the land anyway, might as well learn from men who know it. Cole felt something loosen in his chest, a tension he hadn't realized he was carrying. Maybe this could actually work. Maybe Gideon's death and all the blood spilled wouldn't be for nothing. He found Martha that evening by the river, washing clothes and watching the water flow past. She looked up as he approached, shading her eyes against the setting sun. "You look pleased with yourself," she observed. "Pete and Tom are working together, building a bridge." "I heard. My mother says it's a miracle." Martha returned to her washing. "I say it's just people finally using their common sense." Cole sat down on the bank beside her. "You were right to be scared. This is fragile. One wrong move, one hot head, and it could all fall apart. But it hasn't yet." "No, not yet." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the river providing a gentle backdrop of sound. Then Martha said, "My father's talking about building a permanent house. Says if we're going to make this valley home, we should stop living in wagons like we're ready to run at any moment." "What do you think?" "I think he's right. But I also think—" She trailed off, wringing out a shirt with more force than necessary. "What?" "I think I'm tired of being careful, of guarding my heart against the next disaster, of living like everything good is temporary." She looked at him, and her eyes were fierce. "I want to build something real, Cole. Not just a house, a life, a future. And I want to know if you want that too, or if you're still planning to drift away the moment you feel like you've paid your debt to Gideon." The question had been building since that night after the dinner, and Cole had been avoiding it because he didn't know the answer. He'd spent 5 years running, convinced that staying anywhere would mean facing the guilt and grief he'd been carrying since the war. But being here, helping these people build something from nothing, had shown him that maybe running wasn't the only option. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "How to stay? How to build? I'm good at surviving, at fighting, at moving on before things get complicated. But this—" He gestured at the valley, at her, at everything they were trying to create. "This is complicated as hell, and I don't know if I'm the right man for it." "No one's asking you to be perfect, Cole. Just present, just willing to try." Martha's voice softened. "I'm not asking for promises you can't keep. I'm just asking if you want to stay. Not for Gideon, not out of duty, but because you want to." Cole thought about that, about the valley and its hard-won peace, about the settlers and ranch hands learning to trust each other, about Martha and the way she looked at him like he was worth something more than his past mistakes. Did he want to stay? The answer, when it came, was simpler than he expected. "Yeah," he said. "I do." Martha's smile was like sunrise, slow and warm and full of promise. She reached out and took his hand, and they sat there together as the light faded and the stars came out, two people choosing to build instead of run. The weeks turned into months. The valley settled into its new rhythm, and the seasons changed. Settlers planted crops and watched them grow. Ranch hands drove cattle and mended fences. Children who'd started as enemies became friends, playing together along the river that divided and connected their families. Cole found himself taking on responsibilities he'd never imagined. When disputes arose, people came to him for resolution. When new settlers arrived, drawn by word of available land, he helped integrate them into the community's careful balance. When a harsh winter threatened both crops and cattle, he organized a sharing system that kept everyone fed. He was building something, and it terrified him as much as it satisfied him. One crisp autumn morning, Jack rode up to where Cole was helping repair a settler's barn roof. "Got news from Silver Creek," Jack said. "The prisoners we sent in. They were tried and sentenced, 2 hanged, 1 got 20 years. Cole climbed down from the roof, wiping sawdust from his hands. "Justice served, then." "Seems like." Also heard that word spread about what happened here. About settlers and ranchers learning to share land peacefully. There's talk of other valleys trying the same thing. "That's good. Means maybe something good came out of all the blood. Jack hesitated, then said, "There's something else. A woman came through Silver Creek asking questions about the valley. About you specifically." Cole's heart did something complicated in his chest. "What kind of woman?" "Didn't get a name, but the description matches Martha Haynes. She was asking about land prices, building supplies, making plans." Cole found Martha that afternoon in the field where her father was breaking ground for a permanent house. She was measuring out dimensions, making notes, fully absorbed in the work. "Planning something?" he asked. She looked up, and the smile that lit her face told him everything he needed to know. "We're building. A real house with real walls and a real roof. My father says if this is home, we should make it look like one." "Good plan." Cole walked the perimeter with her, looking at the stakes marking where walls would go, imagining the structure that would rise here. "I heard you were in Silver Creek asking questions." "I was getting prices on glass for windows and nails, and checking on when the next supply wagon comes through." She stopped, turned to face him. "I also filed a claim on the land we're standing on. Made it official, the Haynes family homestead." "Your father must be pleased." "He is. But there's something else." Martha pulled a folded paper from her pocket. "There's land available just north of here, 20 acres, good soil, close to water. It's not claimed yet." "You thinking of expanding?" "I'm thinking you should claim it." The words hung between them, full of implication and possibility. Cole took the paper, unfolded it, looked at the surveyor's description of land he'd ridden past 100 times without thinking of it as his. "I'm not a farmer, Martha. You're not just a drifter anymore either. You're a mediator, a leader, someone people trust." She moved closer, her voice gentle but insistent. "Claim the land, Cole. Build a house. Make a life. Stop existing between things and start belonging to something." He wanted to say yes, wanted to take the paper and ride to Silver Creek and make it official. But old habits died hard, and part of him still felt like a man who didn't deserve to put down roots. "What if I'm not ready?" he asked quietly. "What if you are, and you're just too scared to admit it?" That hit closer to truth than Cole was comfortable with. He'd faced down outlaws and survived battles and carried dying friends from killing fields. But the idea of claiming land, building a house, making a life with Martha, that scared him in ways violence never had. "I need to think about it," he said finally. Martha nodded, understanding but disappointed. "Don't think too long. Good land doesn't stay available forever." Miss. 3 days later, Cole rode out to the northern edge of the valley where the unclaimed land sat waiting. It was good property, just like Martha had said. A gentle slope facing south for warmth, a creek running through one corner, timber in the foothills behind for building. He could see a house here, a barn, fields of wheat or corn or whatever he decided to plant. He could see a life here. The realization didn't come like lightning. It came like dawn, slow and inevitable and undeniable. He'd been building this life for months without realizing it, making decisions as if he'd stay, thinking in terms of years instead of days, imagining futures that included Martha and the valley and a community he'd helped create. He was already home. He just hadn't admitted it yet. Cole rode to Silver Creek the next morning and filed his claim. The clerk processed the paperwork with bored efficiency, stamping documents and collecting fees, having no idea he was witnessing a man finally choosing to stop running. When Cole returned to the valley, Martha was waiting like she'd known he'd come back different. He showed her the papers, and she threw her arms around him, laughing and crying at the same time. "You're staying," she said against his chest. "Really staying." "Yeah, I am." "Why now? What changed?" Cole pulled back enough to look at her face, seeing his future written there in freckles and hope and absolute certainty. "I stopped being afraid of wanting something, of building something that could be destroyed. I realized that running from loss doesn't prevent it. It just guarantees you'll face it alone." That night there was another gathering, smaller than the first, more intimate. Just close friends and family, celebrating not a treaty or an agreement, but simpler, more personal victories. Samuel announced the completion of his house. Jack talked about plans to expand the ranch's breeding program. Tom and Sarah presented their newborn daughter, born healthy and strong despite everything they'd endured. And Cole, with Martha beside him, announced his claim and his intention to build a house on the northern property. Pete raised a glass. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, everyone echoed, and the toast felt like benediction and promise rolled together. Winter came, and with it the real test of the valley's peace. Resources grew scarce, tempers shortened. The carefully maintained balance threatened to tip into conflict over hay supplies and sheltered grazing, and who had first claim on what. But Cole had learned something in his months as mediator. Conflict wasn't the enemy. How you handled it made the difference. So when two families nearly came to blows over a disputed fence line, he brought them together and had them talk it through until they found compromise. When cattle broke through onto settler land and damaged crops, he helped negotiate fair compensation and better fencing. When sickness swept through the ranch hand's bunkhouse and the settlers shared their medicine and helped nurse them back to health, he made sure everyone saw the kindness for what it was, proof that they weren't two separate communities anymore but one. Spring arrived with new growth and new challenges. More settlers came, drawn by reports of the Sweetwater Valley Agreement and the possibility of peaceful coexistence. Cole and Jack worked together to integrate them, finding land, establishing boundaries, making sure the careful balance they'd built didn't tip into chaos with the influx of new people. Cole's house rose slowly on his northern claim, built with timber he'd cut himself and help from neighbors who showed up on weekends to pitch in. It wasn't fancy, a simple structure with a main room, a bedroom, and a porch overlooking the valley, but it was solid and real and his. Martha was there the day he finished the last board on the roof, handing him nails and making suggestions about where to put windows. When he climbed down, she was standing in what would be the main room, turning slowly to take it in. "It's beautiful," she said. "It's rough. It's yours. That makes it beautiful." Cole walked over to where she stood, sawdust in her hair and a smudge of dirt on her cheek, looking at him like he'd built something more than a house, like he'd built a future worth stepping into. "Come live in it with me," he said, the words surprising him even as he spoke them. Martha's eyes went wide. "Cole Mercer, are you asking me to marry you?" "I'm asking you to build a life with me, in this house, in this valley, whatever that looks like." He took her hands, felt them strong and calloused from work, just like his. "I know I'm not much. I've got a past full of mistakes and a future I'm making up as I go. But I'm here. I'm staying. And I want to build all of it with you." Martha's answer was a kiss that tasted like yes and forever, and everything Cole had been too afraid to want. They were married a month later in a ceremony that brought the whole valley together. Settlers and ranch hands alike attended, filling the clearing by the river where the first bridge had been built. Samuel officiated, his voice strong and proud. Jack stood as Cole's best man, and Martha's sister stood as hers. It wasn't fancy. There were no fancy clothes or elaborate decorations, just people who'd survived hell together, celebrating two of their own, choosing hope over fear, commitment over running, building over burning. As Cole and Martha exchanged their vows, he looked out at the assembled crowd and saw something that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. Former enemies standing together as family, shared land producing shared prosperity, a community built not on old hatreds but on the daily choice to try something different. Pete caught his eye and nodded once, approval and acceptance in that simple gesture. Tom stood with his wife and child, healthy and whole. Jack's expression was complicated, pride and grief mixed together, mourning Gideon while honoring his legacy by making the valley into something better than it had been. The celebration lasted long into the night, with music and dancing and toast to the future. Cole found himself pulled into conversation, slapped on the back, welcomed into a community he'd helped create but never quite believed he belonged to. As the stars came out and people started drifting back to their homes, Martha pulled him away from the crowd, down to the river where they'd had so many important conversations. "Happy?" she asked. Cole thought about that, about the boy he'd been before the war, the broken man who'd crawled out of the desert, the drifter who'd tried to keep running even when every reason to stay was staring him in the face. "Yeah," he said, and meant it completely. "I am. Even with all the responsibility, all the people depending on you. Especially because of that. Turns out being needed isn't the burden I thought it was. It's the point." They stood together by the water, husband and wife, watching the valley settle into night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. It always did. But they'd face them together as part of something larger than themselves. A year later, Cole stood on his porch watching the sun rise over Sweetwater Valley, coffee in hand, Martha still asleep in their bed. The valley had grown. More houses dotted the eastern side. The ranch had expanded its operations to the west. A general store had opened at the river crossing, serving both communities. Children went to a shared schoolhouse where they learned reading and arithmetic without caring whether they came from settler or ranch families. It wasn't perfect. Disputes still arose, old tensions occasionally flared, but the framework they'd built held, reinforced by daily choices to cooperate rather than conflict. Jack rode up as Cole finished his coffee, the ranch foreman looking tired but satisfied. "Morning," Jack called. "Got news." "Good or bad?" "Depends on how you look at it. Territorial government is sending someone to look at what we've built here, thinking about using it as a model for settling other disputed areas." Cole absorbed that. The idea that their hard-won peace might become a template for others was both flattering and terrifying. "When?" "Next month. They want to talk to you specifically about how you mediated the agreement, how you keep it working." "I'm not interested in being some territorial spokesman." "I know, but maybe it's worth doing anyway. Maybe what we learned here could save other people from going through what we did." Cole thought about Harper and Carson, about the blood spilled and lives lost before they'd found their way to cooperation. If sharing their story could prevent that somewhere else, maybe it was worth the discomfort. "I'll think about it," he said. Jack tipped his hat and rode off, leaving Cole alone with his thoughts. Behind him, he heard Martha moving around inside the house, starting breakfast, beginning another day in the life they were building together. The valley stretched out before him, beautiful in the morning light, scarred but healing, just like everyone in it. Cole had come here running from death and found life instead, had tried to stay alone and built a family, had thought he was done with fighting and discovered the hardest battles were the ones you fought without bullets. The daily choice to build instead of destroy, to trust instead of fear, to stay instead of run. A child's laughter echoed from one of the nearby houses. Smoke rose from breakfast fires, cattle lowed in the distance. The river flowed endlessly, dividing and connecting, the same water serving all who needed it. Cole drained his coffee and went inside, where Martha was setting the table and humming a tune she'd heard at last week's community dance. She looked up as he entered, and the smile she gave him still had the power to stop his breath. "Morning," she said. "You ready for today?" He was. Ready for work and challenges and the complicated business of building a life worth living. Ready for community and responsibility and all the messy, beautiful complications of belonging somewhere. "Yeah," Cole said, pulling her into his arms, feeling her warmth and strength and absolute certainty. "I'm ready." Outside, the valley waited. Not paradise, not perfect, but real and possible in theirs. A place where people who'd started as enemies had learned to be neighbors, where old hatreds had given way to new hopes, where a man who'd spent years running had finally found a reason to stay. Cole Mercer had come to Sweetwater Valley half dead and running from his past. He'd leave it someday, years in the future, having lived a full life surrounded by family and friends, having helped build something that lasted beyond his own story. But that was decades away. Today, there was work to do, fences to mend, neighbors to help, a community to nurture. Today, there was Martha's hand in his and coffee on the stove and a valley full of people who'd chosen to build rather than burn. Today, there was home. And for Cole Mercer, that was more than enough. It was everything.